Welcome back to the original video. Today we are back for another team prediction video. This time talking about every single team in the AFC South. Just like my past videos doing this, I will have the timestamps in the description and a pinned comment for each team. So that way, if you're a Titans fan and you couldn't care less about what I have to say about the Colts, just click on the timestamp and it'll take you to that point in the video where I talk about the Titans. Otherwise, if you want to hear each one, then this video will be about an hour long. It'll be the same format for each team basically. And it is not in order of my standings. My standings will be at the end where I will list them all out. And then, of course, I'll talk about kind of where I have each team as the video goes on. But starting with the Colts, also, the Browns and Eagles are playing right now in preseason. It's 3-2, and that is so weird to see. But yeah, into it here. So the AFC South, this entire video is going to be very interesting compared to the other ones because of the amount of rookie quarterbacks not only starting, but that are just honestly in this division, and overall just young quarterbacks. Even Trevor Lawrence, it's like, his third year now, so very young kind of offenses in this division. But first is the Colts, and like I said for past videos, like sometimes the top players will matter going into this year, other times they won't. This is an example of like Matt Ryan, it doesn't really matter. But he's there as one of the top players from last year, along with Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. Taylor had a bit of a down year with I guess compared to his previous season. But still, the Colts overall, just it was clear the veteran quarterback approach of bringing someone in was not going to work. I think that was kind of evident probably after the Philip Rivers experiment. And then Matt Ryan was kind of your last-ditch effort to see if that approach will work. Clearly did not, and that's why they went out and they drafted Anthony Richardson, which I am pretty happy with. I think at number 4, it's a safe spot to pick him just because of all the potential he has. And he has officially been named their starter going into this year. But just a brief, kind of a short recap here of what last season was like for them. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor, not the best year, but again, still a good year, just not by his standards, kind of like what he did the previous year. Matt Ryan was not very good for them, 14 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, and the entire offense just seemed very kind of out of sync and not on the same page. Michael Pittman, he's down here, of course, but he had, I think it said 825 or 925 or something like that. So Alec Pearson, his first year, not bad in a very dysfunctional offense. He had 2 touchdowns and 63 yards, 93 yards. So about 600 yards and 2 touchdowns for Alec Pearson. A not great offense. Isn't terrible. But overall, from the Colts last year, it was very clear that something had to be done and something big had to be done to kind of put the team in a position to have consistency, especially at quarterback for years to come. And that's why I do like that draft choice. That's really all I'm going to talk about for last year, though, because honestly, I kind of think it's fair just to put last season behind them because with that quarterback situation, it's just not really fair to kind of linger on that because it's a whole new thing this year. I mean, a whole new thing, not even just because it's a rookie, but because of what this quarterback really brings to the table. So let's jump into that right now, and we're going to head over to the depth chart here. So they have Anthony Richardson as their starting quarterback. They did officially announce that, I think, earlier this week, or maybe just a couple days ago, actually. He has already played in the preseason game, I think, against the Bills, where he did throw an interception. But other than that, he actually looked pretty good. I think he was a little nervous at first and not really careful with the ball. He had a great pass to Alec Pearson, a touchdown. I mean, it was a dot, and Alec Pearson just kind of dropped on the way down, which is tough because if he caught that, people would be talking about his debut, Anthony Richardson, that is, as in a lot different context if he would have caught that touchdown. But I still think he looked more comfortable as the game went on. But something to remember is that he is an incredibly raw prospect. I mean, to take someone at 4, it means you have not only a lot of faith in them, but that it's clear that they are deserving of that spot. And he didn't have a whole lot of success in college. I mean, he struggled in college. And if you go number 4, despite that, you clearly have some unbelievable, not only attributes, but an incredibly high ceiling if people are willing to take that risk. Now, I do think Anthony is capable, or not capable, he is deserving of that risk and capable of reaching that ceiling eventually. But, I mean, for his size and his speed and his arm, arm accuracy, his power, couldn't get that mixed up. His arm power is off the charts. His accuracy needs some work, but his arm strength is unbelievable. I mean, it really is unbelievable. He like just kind of flicks his wrist and goes 60 yards. It's absolutely insane. So a guy like that, you guys take a chance on. I like the Colts doing that. It's much different than like the Carson Wentz or the Phillip Rivers or the Matt Ryan. I mean, it's a quarterback that's very dynamic. He's going to change where that offense works. I like that a lot. Moving on from him, though, Jonathan Taylor. I don't know, man. I mean, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? I really have no idea. I think he's expected back now, but, like, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means he's going to play or if he's going to hold out or if he's going to just – I don't know. Hopefully he does. They really need him. Despite him, though, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, and Isaiah McKenzie is not the most loaded wide receiver room in the NFL, but it is definitely enough for Richardson to have consistency. Because Michael Pittman, he's a proven receiver. He's not bad at all. Alec Pierce, like I said, having about 600 yards in a very dysfunctional offense last season is not bad either. Isaiah McKenzie isn't terrible. And then you draft Josh Downs from North Carolina, who is someone that I think can eventually kind of take over that wide receiver 3 spot and maybe become a number 2, depending on obviously how he does. But I like that pick as well. So I do think the Colts offense is capable of being very good. It's just the question marks around it that are just so, like, it's impossible to predict accurately. And we'll get to that because I'm going to predict their record and everything. But it's very hard to do that because of everything surrounding it. But to move on from offense just for a little bit, move on to defense. I think this defense often gets overlooked, especially this year. Not because it's bad or anything, but just because all the focus is on offense and, Anthony Richardson, basically. The defense is not bad. It's not, best in the league, but I don't think it's terrible. You do have Shaquille Leonard still. You have Kwity Paye. DeForest Buckner is a very, very good defensive tackle, like really, really good. And I think he's kind of overlooked for some reason, quite underrated, even though he plays at a very high level year after year. You have Kenny Moore, and you have Julian Blackmon, who I believe had a decent year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought he had a decent year. And then Isaiah Rodgers, you have being cut, I'm pretty sure, because the whole gambling thing, really stupid, really unfortunate that he lost his position over that because, just don't gamble. I mean, it might be a dumb rule, but, like, come on. I mean, he was an important player on that team. But despite that, I do think they have some playmakers still. But, again, all that focus on quarterback right now because that is what's up in the air. Like, we've seen what the defense can do pretty much, and, it's kind of going to be – I mean, I think it'll be in that probably – I mean, I'm not going to say top whatever, but, like – it'll be a solid defense. It will get the job done. It's not going to, like, lead the league and stand out, but it's also not going to be, like, bottom of the league or anything like that, I don't think. That's why the offense also has a big focus on it, because we've already kind of seen this. It's all we have not seen yet. That's so intriguing about the Colts overall. So I do want to go back to offense. Actually, let's go to the schedule. Let's go to the schedule real quick. So looking at the schedule, this is what's interesting for the Colts is that these games, like, if I'm going to go predict these, like, let's go to Cleveland. If Richardson sucks, they probably get stomped by Cleveland. If he, like, comes out firing and he's a very good quarterback, they can probably beat Cleveland pretty easily. So, like, it's very hard to predict anything and feel confident in it other than, like, them beating the Rams or beating Tampa Bay or at least beating Houston once. Like, other than that, it's very difficult to really kind of accurately predict. I'm going to do my best, and I have thought it over before doing this video and everything, but I just want to get that out there that this is a very rough prediction somewhere in the ballpark. Like, there are so many things that go into this where if he turns out to be terrible, then this game will be completely different. If he turns out to be great, then maybe this game will be different. So just remember that, please. But after looking it over, and despite all the question marks, I do have the Colts going 6-11. I'm not sure, Colts fans, how we're feeling about that. Maybe that seems too low. To me, whenever I do this, I try and predict off what we know. And I'm actually pretty confident that Richardson will become a pretty good quarterback in the NFL, but I just don't think that's in year one. I think year one he's going to struggle a little bit. I think he will show some really good flashes and have a couple really good games to where like what you're going to be getting, but just not yet. So I think the team definitely feels optimistic after this year with him. But to predict it this season, like, I don't know. Like I said, I think you can beat the Rams. I think you can beat Tampa Bay, like, right off the bat. Those are two pretty bad teams that I think you can definitely win. And I think Carolina too. I mean, Carolina has good defense, but they're definitely beatable, and they collapse. I've had to see it way too many times in my life. But some of the more games are up in the air, like we'll say the Falcons. I mean, that game could be very close, but it just depends on what Richardson's like at that point in the season. Like, I have no idea what he's going to look like Saturday when he plays, let alone December 24th against the Falcons. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know, but games like that, games like Las Vegas, games like Cleveland, I mentioned, New Orleans, I do think they at least beat Houston once, regardless of how he performs, really. I think they could give the Titans a game for sure. But yeah, so again, these can go either way. As far as their division goes, I think they can either split or sweep Houston. I think they can also probably split with the Titans, but that might be a little tough. I'm not really sure. I think the Titans offense might cause that Colts defense some problems, but divisional game, they usually play each other pretty tough, so I would say they could split with them. I think New England will be pretty tough for them. It's a pretty good defense, and Richardson's first year in the league, that might be a rough one. But other than that, I think a lot of games could go either way, so it is hard to predict. I do have them at 6-11. If you disagree, let me know in the comments like what you have them like kind of finishing the year at, because I would be interested to know if you guys are like all in, like he's getting over 500 this season, or maybe even worse, only like 3 wins this season. I do want to know what you guys have to say about that. So I see 6 wins for the Colts, which honestly, with an unproven quarterback and an insanely raw prospect at that, his first year starting, that's not that bad in my opinion. And at least then you actually know you have a franchise guy that you can continue to build around for the next few years. So for me, this year for the Colts, their Super Bowl, like, just see if you can see some flashes and some just even like consistency from Richardson, that he can do it. Even if he's not ready to, he is capable of doing it with more time, with more experience. I think that's the biggest thing for them this year, is just to find their quarterback so they know what they have and they can continue building this team to compete in the AFC in the next few years. I think that's really the most important thing for the Colts. I don't see the playoffs because of how competitive the AFC is. I really don't. But, maybe they surprise and get 2 in that division or something. That's definitely possible if he pops off in his first year, which is very possible. I just don't really see it. So, again, a lot of things go into this, and I'm sure people are very kind of split over it. So let me know down below what you feel the Colts are going to do in their first year with Richardson. I'd be very interested to hear about that. That's kind of how their schedule looking. As far as their depth chart goes, I'm not really sure if I'm going to comment on anything else. Josh Downs, definitely capable of, kind of becoming another wide receiver kind of in there at some point, whether it be this year or not. I do think he will kind of probably have over 300 yards, 300 to 500 probably for Josh Downs, I'd say. I think he gets a lot more reps as the season goes on. So, again, that's kind of how I see it. The Colts defense, I'm not going to expect a whole lot, but I am going to expect, like, consistency and just to be pretty solid. It's just kind of how I see that defense. It's just kind of pretty solid overall. But yeah, so I do typically finish off these sections making some bold predictions. And there is no bolder prediction that I can make on this team than one with Anthony Richardson. So I'm going to choose 3 players. If you haven't seen me do this before for these team things, I choose 3 players to make some pretty bold or just predictions in general on them of like what I want to see them kind of do. Anthony Richardson, as unproven of a passer as he is right now, I want to see him break, let's see, like 2,500 yards. Maybe that seems too low. Maybe that seems too high. I don't know. I know Fields got around there, I think, in his first second year. So I'm going to have him around there. But let's say that with, like, I don't know, you want to say 15 touchdowns? Maybe it's too high. I don't know. That's just kind of how I see this first year for him. It's not going to be anything insane. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like 15 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, honestly. I think turnovers will be an issue, but that will come with experience as well. I think he will learn to take care of the ball, but there's just no way to learn without really being in that game setting and making those mistakes and being able to learn from them. So that's how I have Richardson. We'll choose... I could do Michael Pittman. We'll just do Josh Downs. Let's say Josh Downs kind of goes off. It were like 500 yards for his first year and like 3 touchdowns. I think that'd be pretty cool for him. Alec Pierce is pretty solid, but Josh Downs, I think, does have a higher ceiling. And then defensively, I mean, do I choose a defensive one, or do I just go all offense? Because that's like the focus of this team. Let's just go all offense. Actually, no, let's do Richardson again, but let's do his rushing. Let's say he gets over 800 rushing yards and like 4 rushing touchdowns. I think that's possible if he commits to be more of a runner, if he isn't as confident in his arm. Because, I mean, Fields kind of leaned on that last year when he was running for his life and didn't have the best weapons around him. I could see Richardson doing the same thing, especially because of how tough a runner he is. So we'll do that. We'll do 2 for Richardson, passing and rushing, and then 1 for Josh Downs, both rookies. I do see big things out of them, but I think this is just a thing where it is going to take time for the Colts, in my opinion. But again, sometimes like the Bengals, it takes that one guy to bring everybody together and just turn it around fairly quickly. So maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. Let me know below what you guys think, though, and on to the next team. All right, guys, and the next team I'm going to be talking about for this video is the Houston Texans. Now, again, last year, their top players, not really a factor this year. Not Davis Mills, not Brandon Cooks, but Damian Pierce is still there, and Jalen Petrie is still there. So we're just going to jump right into it. Quick recap from last year. The Texans were bad. I mean, I think we all kind of knew that. They could have had the first overall pick if it wasn't like a Hail Mary, I think, that they somehow caught for a touchdown and then ended up beating the Colts. Bit of a fumble there because I think they always kind of preferred Bryce Young, but they ended up going with Stroud. And then they really committed to rebuilding this team when they traded for back-to-back top 3 picks, picked Stroud at 2 and Will Anderson at 3. I just had a recap of last year, even though I talked like for maybe 30 seconds about the Hail Mary thing. But anyway, that's what they did in the draft, though. As far as last year went, the highlight was kind of Damian Pierce, in my opinion. He was very good. Almost 1,000 yards with 7 touchdowns. Or no, sorry, 4 touchdowns. Looking at the wrong thing. Receiving-wise, Brandon Cooks was quite good. And then after that, a little rough, but you still have Nico Collins, who has a lot of potential, and some other receivers I want to talk about later on this video as well. But for right now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the recap for the Texans because there's really not a lot there. It was a rough year. We know that. But let's kind of move on to some of the positives. And actually, let's just go right to the depth chart at this point. So let's start with C.J. Stroud. We've already seen him in his preseason game. Well, at least at the time of recording this, we've seen him during the first preseason game. I haven't seen him play in the second one. Against the Patriots, it was rough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was rough. He got sacked. Didn't have a lot of time. Threw a very bad interception. Got rocked another play, though he did complete it. But all in all, there wasn't a lot there. We didn't really get to see a whole lot. Kind of glad they pulled him because he was taking some serious hits. That O-line was not doing anything, kind of like the Panthers. Although I believe the Texans, a few of their starters were not even playing. I'm pretty sure, hopefully, because that was rough. But Stroud, we'll come back to him. But moving on real quick. Damian Pierce had a great year last year. They brought in Devin Singletary from the Bills, so now they have both of them. That's a pretty solid running back room. Very consistent there, so that's what you want to see. Nico Collins, Robert Woods, and Noah Brown for wide receivers. That's a little underrated in my opinion. Nico Collins is not bad at all. Robert Woods, he's toward the end of his career, but he's a veteran, and you need that on a team. Noah Brown from the Cowboys. I'm not really sure how good he was. I think he had a few good plays, but overall as a receiver, I'm not sure how great he is. And in my opinion, that makes things way more exciting between Tank Dell and John Mechie. Tank Dell looked great in preseason. He's looked great in training camp. I mean, his route running is so smooth. He had a crazy touchdown catch, which, to be fair, he made like as hard as possible on himself to catch that because he should have just caught it. But it looks cooler the way he did it. So, man, that's fine with me. It's more fun to watch. And then John Mechie, one of the better comeback stories in recent years after tearing his ACL in college and then being diagnosed with leukemia last year. And now he's actually back and clear to play. Really crazy stuff. And I actually made a video on him, I think 3 months ago, talking about his potential year he could have if he's clear to play. And here we are, and he's clear to play. So I guess that video aged pretty well. I was very happy about that for him. So, again, this offense, kind of like the Colts, has a lot of moving parts. Also, I didn't mention Dalton Schultz. You brought him in from Dallas. It's a very solid tight end. But it has a lot of moving parts. So let's go back to C.J. Stroud real quick. What you do know about him, at least, pre-draft and everything, is that his accuracy is very, very good. I think he even calls himself a ball placement specialist. I mean, we know that. We didn't get to see a whole lot of that. But if you're the type of person to hate on, rookies in preseason, come on. I mean, Jamar Chase was said to have drop issues, and, look at him. I mean, he still actually does have a fairly high drop rate, funny enough, but he just does everything else at such a high level, it just doesn't really matter. But anyway, apart from that, seriously, I do think you can't really judge a player until you see it in a real game setting. So Stroud, he got hit a lot, didn't have a lot of time. One of his completions he did have, though, was after, I mean, like, kind of, I guess, while being rocked. So, he stood in there, made the throw. That's, fairly mature for a rookie quarterback to be able to focus like that while getting hit. But again, small things that you can take away from that game. I think it'll be more exciting to see this upcoming game, I believe, against the Dolphins, I think, for preseason, to see if he can do anything more there where we get a better look at what he can do. Because, again, preseason, I'm not going to hold that against players, but you do want to see some good flashes and some, kind of potential there. Again, the wide receiver room, I think, in my opinion, is up for grabs other than Nico Collins. John Mechie and Tank Dell can totally, at some point, take over Robert Woods and Noah Brown, at least in my opinion. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that, but that's at least how I feel. At least Tank Dell could get there. Maybe John Mechie's not quite at that point yet, but Tank Dell's looked absolutely amazing, and I don't see any reason why Robert Woods or Noah Brown would be over him if he continues to develop and have a great season. But yeah, so we'll come back to the offense and team as a whole. Let's go into defense, though, because this defense is very exciting. And I also want to take this time to mention the head coach, D'Amico Ryans. You bring him in, very defensive-minded. It's a great move. You need a new, fresh start, new head coach. It's a great guy to bring in. You already have, honestly, you have a somewhat decent defense. I'm not going to say this defense is like super underrated. They're going to end up, top whatever. But what I will say is they have the players to get there eventually. Not right now because they're all so young. But look, Jalen Petrie had a great year last year. We saw him the top players. He led the team, I believe, tackles and interceptions. Not the league, the team. Did not mean to misspeak there. There's a big difference. But you have Jimmy Ward. You have Will Anderson, who just drafted. And again, we'll come back to him in a second. Denzel Perryman. And you have Derek Stingley Jr. That is someone I want to talk about for a second. Last year was not a good rookie showcase for him because he was not in a spot where he was going to really succeed. He wasn't in the best scheme. He wasn't really used properly. He also gets hurt, misses some time. I see a good year from him in his second year. I think last year was a bit of an outlier. I think what he can do, what he will be able to do if he can, transition to the league and kind of put everything together because he's not a bad corner at all. I mean, don't forget, we were having discussions pre-draft who you'd rather have, Derek Stingley or Sauce Gardner. And we all know how Sauce Gardner's turned out. So Derek Stingley is capable of playing at a very high level. He's just not in the same position as all that Sauce is. And not saying that Sauce is only better because of his position and everything, like where he is at the team and how the Jets are. I'm not trying to say that, but I am just saying that Derek Stingley Jr. was in a very bad spot last year. So I think this year it's going to complement him more, and we'll be able to see what he can really do. He was actually in, I believe, the video I made on one of 5 possible breakout players. But other than him, back to Will Anderson. This is someone you traded up for to get in a back-to-back top 3 pick. That is a big deal. Will Anderson, in my opinion, so I thought they were going to go for right off the bat with the second overall pick. But apparently you want to prioritize Stroud and then make that trade and then get Will Anderson. So, I mean, I don't see how he has a bad rookie year or even bad NFL career, to be honest. I mean, he's one of, if not the most pro-ready player in the entire draft. Maybe Jalen Carter, but Will Anderson's definitely up there. So, I think it's a great pick. It helps you out. It gives you more depth there. And like I said, the Texans defense, it isn't, super, super good. But, you have some young guys where, if you turn this team around and start kind of trending upward, these are guys that can become something, the backbones of this defense. They can be some very solid players. Jalen Petrie is quite underrated if he can't continue to perform at the level he's currently performing at. So, defense, I think it is there. Let's move on to the schedule, though. We'll come back to that probably after this. But the schedule is where we need to talk about a few things here. Now, as you guys have heard, I have been talking at the Texans in a very optimistic way. I think they have a lot of young players. But again, kind of like the Colts, I don't think it happens this year. I'm sorry. Maybe you think it does. And if you do, let me know down below. Let me know why. Because, I'm totally open-minded when it comes to that. I'm not, set in my ways or anything like that. So I am totally open to hearing, your guys' opinion. Because it is something to talk about, if Stroud is going to light it up his first year or not. Because people are definitely split over that, especially his situation in Houston. I am, like I said, not really in that spot to where I think that's going to happen. And they play some tough defenses, I'm not going to lie. You have the Broncos and Jets back-to-back. I'm going to go on a limb here and say Stroud is not going to have a lot of fun December 10th and December 17th. I said the wrong games. December 3rd and December 10th. Maybe December 17th. He does have fun. I don't know. But those two games, Denver and New York, might be really rough. Other than that, though, like I said for the Colts, there are some games where, depending on how the Texans are playing, they could go either way. So let's talk about those. The Cardinals, very winnable. The Cardinals, in my opinion, are going to be toward the very bottom of the league. You can definitely win that game. The Colts, in your division, in a pretty similar situation at that, you can definitely beat them. You could sweep them. The Colts could sweep you, or you could sweep the Colts. You might split. I don't know. But both of those games are very winnable. Like I said, I think Cleveland is still winnable, depending on how you're playing at that point, because I think Cleveland could be a little shaky as well. Other than that, though, Tampa Bay. You can definitely beat Tampa Bay. You can definitely... I was going to say definitely beat the Saints, but that defense might give you some issues. I do think, again, depending on how that offense is playing, you could you could definitely compete with these Saints and the Falcons. Maybe not beat them, but it could look good depending on how that team is playing. So, again, it's a very rough prediction at this point in the year because for a team like this, there's just so many unknowns. I don't see them beating Baltimore, though. Don't see them beating Cincinnati or Jacksonville or Denver or New York. But other than that, you can definitely steal one off Tennessee. You could, Carolina, again, like, you could probably beat Carolina. As a Panthers fan, I don't know what the Panthers are doing half the time. Sometimes I think they're capable of this, and it's like, we didn't even score a point in a preseason game against the Jets last week. So, your guess is as good as mine. But other than that, these games can go in a lot of different directions. So, for me, I had the Texans one game behind the Colts at 5-12. I just think the Colts, while both quarterbacks, as far as the Colts and Texans, are very unproven and unknown, the Colts have more players that are proven that we do know what to expect, like DeForest Buckner. Even though Michael Pittman might be impacted by his quarterback, he's still a great receiver, and he's still better than any of the receivers on the Texans, at least as of right now, in my opinion. And you have like Jonathan Taylor as long as he's playing and stuff like that. So I do think the Colts do have, and both teams are in some pretty similar situations, but I do think the Colts have some more kind of proven players at those spots. So I have them one game ahead, but look, at this point in the preseason with two quarterbacks we never even seen play in the NFL, that means absolutely nothing. That could go, that could be flipped. Maybe the Texans are up one, or maybe it's like a 5-game difference. I have no idea. That's just where I have them sitting right now. And again, let me know down below like what you guys might have them at, because it's very tough to do this with quarterbacks you don't really know how they're going to play. You kind of have to base it off games you know are very winnable, and then from there, it just depends on how they're playing at that point in the year. Again, I don't see them beating the Jets or the Broncos, but a tougher game like the Steelers against a really good defense, maybe Stroud is lighting it up, and he's able to kind of overcome that and beat that defense. I don't know. It's very possible. So, again, let me know down below. It's very hard to do this, but I do have the Texans behind the Colts at 5-12, which is basically kind of, probably last in that division. Not mean to spoil ahead, but I'm not putting the Jaguars or Titans less than 5 wins. So that's kind of all I have to say about the schedule part. All right, so as far as the bold predictions go, because like I said, I will do this for each team and everything. We got to do CJ Stroud, right? It's just kind of a given. Stroud, I think, is a more proven passer than Richardson. So 2,500 yards might be a little low for him. So we'll say 3,000. If he is able to have time to make his reads, he is very, very accurate. And I think it's very possible. You do have a good enough wide receiver room for him to make that mark. Will he? I don't know. Maybe it's a little high. That's kind of like my bold thing. We'll say Stroud hits 3,000 yards. As far as touchdowns go for him, 15. I think 15 is definitely possible. I think I had Richardson at about that as well. So if you want, we could say Stroud at 20, but maybe a high interception rate, 20 to 15 maybe, touchdowns and interceptions. Maybe somewhere in that ballpark. I got to do Tank Dell because this dude's so exciting. I'm going to say he goes for over 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. I have a lot of kind of confidence in this guy. I know it's very dangerous to kind of, put someone in preseason that high up maybe in the league, but it's not like this guy's been a hidden talent. His route running has been known. He's a great route runner, and now he's kind of putting everything together. So if he can do that and get some minutes this season, he's definitely capable of doing that. As far as defense goes, Will Anderson, I mean, coming off the edge, we could say 6.5 sacks for a season. That's probably a little low, but like again, it can be kind of hard to predict that for someone's first year. So we'll say at least 6.5 sacks for him. I think it's definitely possible as a rookie. The dude's a beast. If he can stay healthy, which I'm sure he will. I mean, I'm not sure why I said that. I guess it's just kind of an obvious one. If he can stay healthy, he'll get there. But yeah, so I guess we'll go with that for our kind of predictions. If you guys have any of your own, let me know down below. But that's probably gonna do it for the Texans portion of this video. Got him going 5-12, but look, like you're in the right direction. You're going up. It's just gonna take some time. Not this season, in my opinion. I think next season you're going to be where the Bears are this season, where the hopes are pretty high, even though you might not make it. Like it's realistic enough to have that high of hopes. And I think maybe the season after that, we're talking like, you know, win this division type thing if everything goes to plan. So I think it's there for the Texans. Might take some more time. We'll see how it goes. But on to the next team. All right, guys, and the next team is the Jaguars. This is a team that I have been openly very high on in all my videos that have ever really mentioned them. From my Trevor Lawrence player prediction video to my ranking all teams video, as far as like, you know, them being in a possible like deep playoff run type team. I have a lot of high hopes for them, and we're going to talk about all those and why I feel that way in, you know, this section right now. As far as top players last year go, I mean, you know, it's pretty similar to what this year could look like. Short recap from last year, though. I mean, Trevor Lawrence kind of became and showed what he can be, what we kind of thought he would be when he first came into the league, but, you know, Urban Meyer kind of derailed that a little bit. I think he's back on track, and he's a great young quarterback, one of the better young quarterbacks in the entire NFL. Rushing wise, Travis Etienne, you know, his first full season after getting hurt, did not disappoint. 1,125 yards. They had James Robinson for a time, but again, he got traded away, so I'm not really going to talk about that. Christian Kirk, someone that, including myself, thought was a little overpaid when they brought him in, but I mean, he was great for him, honestly. I mean, he was really, really good. Over 1,000 yards for him, 8 touchdowns, I think that's what that says. Yeah, 8 touchdowns. Zay Jones even played pretty well. He had 823 yards. And is that 5 touchdowns? It's so small from like where I'm standing, I promise. But Evan Ingram had a great year too. I'm really happy they got a deal done to have him back for, you know, a few more seasons and stuff like that. So I like that a lot. Marvin Jones Jr. is gone, but I'm sure you guys know who that receiver is who's kind of filled that spot. So I think that role will be filled just fine. But as far as last season goes for the Jaguars, it was an exciting one. I mean, starting with that Ravens comeback you had, like whenever they were up and Lawrence really just kind of brought him back in it, you win the 2-point conversion. I mean, that was kind of the start of it. Seemed like Trevor Lawrence finding his confidence, and this entire team kind of finding their identity, moving on from there. And they played quite well the rest of the season, including coming back from that 27-0 deficit in the playoffs against the Chargers. So great season for the Jaguars last year, and I see pretty good one this year. So let's get into it. As far as the depth chart goes, so Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, and a voice crack. So for Trevor Lawrence, you know, I'm expecting what we saw last year to continue and be maybe at an even higher level. I don't think there's any reason for him to regress. You have a good coach, you got weapons, you're coming off a great season. You know, keep doing your thing there. Travis Etienne, and then Tank Bigsby. This is someone I want to talk about. That you draft him. I was a little surprised to see that, but I mean, if you're drafting him after just drafting Etienne, you have plans for him, and you think he's going to be a great player, and he's shown to be honestly pretty good so far. So maybe a lighter workload for Travis Etienne. Maybe some are only receiving plays for one of them. Maybe more rushing plays. I don't know, but another weapon in that backfield. I mean, shoot, that's just even more deadly. I think Tank Bigsby actually looks to be pretty good and to be somewhat efficient too. So Christian Kirk, great season last year. I think his role will be a little smaller this year just because I see a massive season from that next guy, Calvin Ridley. This is someone who was on the Falcons. He had a good year. He gets traded and then gets suspended for an entire season. You know, and now he's back, and he looks very, very good. I mean, his route running looks very good. And I mean, he's in great shape. And like, I'm not no disrespect to Christian Kirk or Zay Jones, but Calvin Ridley can definitely, if he's healthy, be a better receiver than either one of them. And this is someone that, like, look, Christian Kirk or Ridley, whoever your wide receiver 2 is, that is a very good wide receiver number 2. That's kind of like I mean, may not on the same level, but like the whole Jamar Chase 1, T. Higgins 2 thing, like, yeah, it's 1 and 2, but like Higgins is like basically wide receiver 1, just playing the 2. And I think the same here. Like, Christian Kirk has proven that he can be that guy like he was last year. And Calvin Ridley, I mean, he was deadly on the Falcons. I'm not going to lie. I had to see that as a Panthers fan. It was obnoxious. I mean, this guy is very, very good. So don't take him lightly. Then Zay Jones had a great year last year. I think the wide receiver 3 is a great role for him, honestly. And then Evan Ingram, who we already talked about, who had a good season last year, and now he's back. So this offense could be definitely one of the best in the entire league. I think it's going to be very, very deadly, and I'm really excited to see it. I want to see especially how Calvin Ridley and Tank Bigsby fit in their respective positions and in the whole offense, really, because I mean, you got some depth all over the place now. Over to defense, and I'm not going to lie, this is definitely the weaker part of your team. But you do have good players like Josh Allen. Devin Lloyd's not bad. Faisal Lukan is a veteran. And then also Rayshawn Jenkins had that crazy game against the Cowboys. And then also Trayvon Walker, you drafted 1 last season. Maybe not the season you want from the first overall pick, but it wasn't like he had a bad season. May have been a little lackluster and stuff, but like, again, give the guy some time to develop. I think he'll be pretty good for them. But overall, this is probably where you struggle this year. I do have the Jaguars defense relatively low on the kind of defensive rankings I did. Not like bottom of the league low, but like gonna struggle in some better offenses low. But again, the Vikings have a terrible defense. Like last year, you know, they got kind of diced up at the end there by Danny Dimes, but they got to the playoffs for a reason. They won, 12 games or something? Like, they won those for a reason. That offense kind of carried them at times. And I think this offense can definitely do the same. So, yeah, I mean, definitely a little weaker on this end, but, I mean, the offense is the really exciting part. You got to keep developing that defense and stuff, but this is where all the focus, it seems to be this year. So, coming over to the schedule, the Jaguars, first off, are in a very, not only winnable division, but Colts and Texans are not on that level yet. I mean, that could be seriously 4 wins right there. You could probably sweep both of those teams. Will you? I don't know, but it's definitely possible. Other than that, you can beat the Falcons, you can beat the Saints, you can beat the Steelers, you can beat the Browns, Tampa Bay, Carolina, and you can probably split with the Titans. So there is the possibility for them to have a very big year, and I'm going to kind of predict it like they are going to have a very big year. I'm going to say the Jaguars get in that 11-6 range. 11-6. It's kind of how I see them. Again, doing season-long predictions at this point in the year can be tough, but that is really where I see that. I see them having a huge year. I mean, their offense is just so good. If that defense is not one of the better ones in the league, it's going to struggle. There's so many different weapons, and the quarterback Lawrence had kind of turned into last season was one that really was not only able to use those weapons, but was also able to take care of the ball and limit turnovers, which had been an issue for him in the past, in his first few years in the NFL, first couple seasons. So, or first one season, I guess, whatever. But yeah, you get my point. So I do think this is going to be a big year for the Jaguars. The obvious thing, though, to consider is just how competitive the AFC is. I mean, unless you're winning the division, it's tough to get the wild card spot. I mean, it's really tough. When you have teams like the Bengals or Ravens, or really that entire division, that could not get a playoff spot, even though they're all relatively pretty good teams, and you have like the AFC West, I mean, the Chargers could get second below the Chiefs. Like, the Chiefs could get second below the Chargers. Those are 2 really, really good football teams that could realistically be a wild card team. So this is an incredibly competitive conference to where, I mean, like in football, obviously every game matters. I mean, that's the best part about football, is that every week matters. But especially in the AFC, you need every single win you can get, because, I mean, there are teams right behind you ready to take that spot if you slip up. So Jaguars are in a great spot to win this division and be one of the better teams, I think, in the league as far as the record goes. Maybe that's inflated because of their not as competitive division, but I mean, I do think they're a very good team. Defense, I do think will take some time to get to a better point, maybe another season or 2, I don't know, but the offense, I think, is really, really at a great spot. I mean, they have depth, they have great receivers, they have great running backs. Lawrence is doing great. Evan Ingram had a great year, so I like the Jaguars a lot. 11-6, maybe it seems a little high, but that is really where I see them landing this year. So coming back over here, and I know this is probably a somewhat shorter section in this video, but honestly, it's because, that's a good thing. There's not a lot of things to consider and talk about when it comes to Jaguars. For the Texans and Colts, there's a lot of stuff that goes into those quarterbacks starting this year. There's a lot of things to consider. The Jaguars, it's better to have a short and kind of concise part in this video because, it's all kind of there. There's not a lot of things to question. I'm very confident in this team. But just to kind of look over everything again, as far as last year goes, changes to this year, I think Calvin Ridley is huge on offense. I think Tank Bigsby is unexpected depth at the running back position. I don't think you really went into this season needing a second running back, but I think you got a really good one that can actually help out a lot for Travis Etienne's workload and be pretty efficient at doing it. So I think it's a great move. Calvin Ridley, obviously, I think is a great move. Christian Kirk, I mean, very underrated. He had a great season last year. So, I mean, that guy is still, even if I'm predicting Ridley to have a bigger season than him, that does not mean Kirk's going to drop to like 700 yards. I think he's a 1,000-yard receiver, despite Ridley probably going for more than him. So, that's just kind of how I see that offense going. Defense, like I mentioned probably multiple times now, still not all the way there. I think I saw some missing parts, but I mean, you do have some proven guys. And I think you want to see some big things out of Trayvon Walker this year. And maybe not even big things, maybe just development, that he's actually, kind of getting better. I think, in my opinion, you take Aiden Hutchinson. I was expecting them to take Aiden Hutchinson. But, you didn't, and now you just got to kind of just do what you can do with what you have. And so I think Walker can be a great player, but he does need some more development. But again, overall, Jaguars, very winnable division, and I think they are definitely the top of that. But yeah, so bold predictions, I don't know. Let's do Ridley first off. Let's do Calvin Ridley. I'm saying 1,400 yards. I'm thinking a huge year for this guy after missing a season. So we'll say 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns. The reason touchdowns are a little low is because they have a lot of other weapons, like Etienne in the backfield, like Tank Bigsby out of the backfield, like Christian Kirk. You guys get it. Like Zay Jones, like Evan Ingram. So that's why kind of my thought process there. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know how many more yards he'd really get realistically. How many? I don't remember his touchdowns. So hold on, real quick. I don't really know. He had 36 touchdowns. Wait, what? Hold on. 1 interception. Okay, I read that as touchdowns, because that's where the touchdowns are. It's this one game. I thought I was losing my mind for a second. Where is the game log? Why is there just no information for him? Okay, there we go. 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. I thought I was losing my mind. I read that as yards, because usually when you look at that kind of stuff from last year, it will have the yards, touchdowns, and whatever. So I read that as 36 touchdowns, and I was like, there's no way he had 36 touchdowns to 1 interception. Okay, I had to regroup myself with that because I thought I was absolutely losing my mind. 25, oh my gosh, now I lost it. 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions last year. I'm going to say, I want to say 35 touchdowns. I really do. We'll go both. We'll say 35 touchdowns, but 14, not 14. We'll say 12 interceptions. We'll say 4 more interceptions. I see a big year from Lawrence. He's done a great job taking care of the ball. I think continues with an even better weapon on the team now too. So other than Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, we could do Trayvon Walker, but that's so up in the air, to predict sacks or anything like that. Let's just go all offense. I said Ridley at 1,300 yards. I mean, we'll say Christian Kirk another 1,100, 1,200. I see a big year from those two guys. They're in a great offense. You guys have heard it 50 times now in this part of this video. I like where this offense is. I think these guys are going to have a great year, and they're going to be a threat in the AFC. I really think that. They can spoil some seasons, make a potential playoff run. I really do see that happening. So, over to the final team, the Tennessee Titans. All right, guys, now on to the final team of this video, which is the Tennessee Titans. In last year, I guess we kind of can use for this year. Kind of an outlier among all these other teams because there's also not a rookie quarterback going to be starting, or at least a young quarterback going to be starting. But there are some exciting things about the Titans. This is a very exciting division. It might not be the most competitive with the best teams. I guess it will be competitive, but maybe not the best teams. But it's a fun one, definitely to talk about and kind of look at for this year. But the Titans are in a much different spot than the teams we've already talked about in this division. So, first off, Ryan Tannehill last year, I'm not going to lie, I don't totally remember what happened to him. I'm pretty sure he got hurt and then missed time because Malik Willis came in and then it was horrible, even though that was kind of expected. People still acted surprised. And yeah, Derrick Henry, though, supposed to be a down year, supposed to kind of declining. This dude is not declining for some reason. He's just too big and too strong for that, I guess, which, pretty exciting. I'm cool with that. Love watching Derrick Henry. Other than that, it has, Robert Woods, 527 yards for them. It was definitely, Disappointing not seeing A.J. Brown on the Titans because it seemed very pointless to give him away. But you did. You drafted Treylon Burks, who had a fine rookie year. It wasn't like he replaced A.J. Brown or anything, but he was pretty good. Other than that, looking at rushing, Derrick Henry, 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns. Actually, even more than what I was going to look at. And then, of course, receiving-wise, Robert Woods, 527. So Burks ended with 444 with 1 touchdown. And then Okonkwo. I think that's how you say it. I always say it wrong. I think it's Okonkwo. He had a pretty good year last year, and he's projected to have a pretty good year this year as well. But again, all the exciting things about the Titans aren't what happened last year as far as coming in kind of transferring to this year. It's not these players last year. It's the players they added. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. Let's go to this depth chart. So you have Ryan Tannehill. He's a veteran QB. He is pretty much an average QB in my opinion. He doesn't do anything exceptionally well, but he is somewhat consistent. I mean, it's not like he's not going to throw on the run for like 75 yards while getting hit or some kind of Mahomes, switch hands. That's a bad example because nobody does that. But you get what I mean. Tannehill's not like the most standout, flashy quarterback, but he does get the job done at a consistent and good enough level. He's not elevating everybody else around him, but he's not like holding them back either, honestly. He's just kind of doing his job, and, honestly, he's had a very respectable career all around. So Ryan Tannehill, still that starter. Derrick Henry, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to say about him because everybody knows Derrick Henry. Moving on. Tashae Spears, I believe, is the rookie who's actually looked pretty decent. So you have him as a backup who eventually, you would think maybe when Derrick Henry's like 70, he'll be able to get that starting job from Derrick Henry. And then, at the very least, though, still some nice depth there at running back. And then you bring in DeAndre Hopkins. We'll get back to him in just a second. Treylon Burks in his second year. Kyle Phillips, and then Okonkwo, who I did say correctly this time. You also draft Peter Skoronski. That's a great pick right there. I believe that was very good value because I think he slid a little bit in the draft for some reason. So that's a very good pick. I cannot forget to mention him. Other than that, though, let's go back up a little bit and go to DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not going to lie. When Hopkins was released, if you would have told me he was going to go to the Titans, I probably wouldn't have believed you because everything he said was like, I want a quarterback that does this, and I want to be with a contender and all this kind of stuff. And the Titans are a good team, and Tannehill's a good enough quarterback, but, I did not think he was going to come here. But what's interesting is that now that he's here, it's kind of like, you know what? Maybe the Titans are going to be better than what we thought they were going to be this year. Because without Henry, man, look, Treylon Burks is good, but he's not wide receiver 1, at least yet. But, now you got Hopkins at 1, Burks at 2. That's a good spot for Burks to be, first off, under Hopkins and being able to learn from him, who was, for some time one of the better receivers in the entire NFL. But then, of course, just developing kind of naturally as he has been, and he did get better over the course of last year. So that's a great spot for Burks to be in. Kyle Phillips, I would be lying if I said I see a big year from him or that he's like a solid wide receiver number 3. I'm sure he makes some plays for him, but honestly, I hear more about Nick Westbrook, Kenny, I think maybe. Again, maybe I'm sleeping on Kyle Phillips, but for me, it's those top 2 wide receivers and running back that makes this offense and tight end really, really exciting because it changes the dynamic. Before it was you hand the ball to Derrick Henry, and if you somehow have a third down, then you pass the ball to, A.J. Brown previously, or I guess, and then last year, of course, it was Treylon Burks. But, that was kind of the offense. There wasn't a whole lot of, excitement to it of all these, kind of passing plays. And it didn't matter because what they were doing was working because Henry is just that good. But now I feel like this makes Henry almost even better because, you don't have to use him as much and wear him down. So you could have Derrick Henry potentially fresher because of plays where you're maybe not using him as much because he isn't in on a whole lot of passing plays unless he's blocking, where you're passing to Hopkins or you're passing to Burks or whatever it may be, whatever the play may be, and then all of a sudden you can come out and just hand the ball to Derrick Henry, who's fresh on a defense that maybe just let up a 25-yard pass and they're exhausted. So you're in a really good spot in my opinion. If you can use this, and first off, the Titans coaching is unbelievable. So they'll be able to use this in a very deadly way, first off. And second, I don't know how this is going to work as far as like Derrick Henry's workload, because before, this dude's getting how many touches a game. It's definitely got to go down to some degree, but Henry's so good, I don't really see the productivity dropping that much. I mean, I guess with age it slowly will, but I don't think that's yet, honestly. I think you could potentially have Derrick Henry fresher more often, which is just insane to think about. Moving on to defense. So this is a defense that I talked about in my video ranking defenses and ranking teams. That is not one that's going to get all these stops and be super deadly. But it is one where you have guys like Kevin Byard, you have Armani Hooker, you have Harold Landry, you have Jeffrey Simmons. Like, you do have playmakers. And it's kind of similar to the Colts, maybe a little bit better than the Colts. But, like, you have playmakers. So maybe they don't have the most stacked corners. You have Sean Murphy bunting. But, like, there are still some big-time playmakers on this defense. I mean, this is a defense that, while Joe Burrow's offensive line was horrible the year they went to the Super Bowl, I mean, they still got, like 7 sacks on them. Like, this defense is capable of being quite good. And honestly, if their offense is even better than it has been, you don't need this defense to be top 5. You just need them to get stops here and there. Because if the offense can score more consistently than what they've been able to, I mean, you're in a good spot. You're in a really good spot. Still have some of the best players, and there eventually will be issues, because remember how good the coaching is. It's going to hurt with the skill gap of some players covering whoever, or trying to tackle whoever it may be. But like, you are going to be in positions where you can get stops and you can win the game, and that offense is going to be able to punish teams for not stopping them more often than what they maybe were able to do in the past, if that makes sense. Hopefully that all makes sense what I was kind of trying to get at there, as far as like, just them being able to score more often, and this defense not being forced to get so many stops because the offense is struggling, is essentially what I'm trying to say there. So the Titans are in a very good spot. And I don't think, and I also want to say this as I go over to the schedule here, because people have mentioned, like, the Titans are where receivers have come to kind of end their careers and fall off, like Andre Johnson and Randy Moss and Julio Jones. It's not the same for DeAndre Hopkins. Like, in my opinion, those guys were already kind of slowing down, or they've already kind of slowed down. Hopkins has had pretty good years. He's DeAndre Hopkins, and I know eventually people are saying the same thing about Julio Jones. He's Julio Jones, but like, Hopkins has very recently been quite good. Like, he hasn't fallen off or anything, and it was on the Cardinals while they were a pretty good team, and Kyler Murray is a pretty good quarterback. He's able to win in positions where his quarterback might not be the best. So Tannehill, like I've mentioned, is a good enough quarterback. He's not going to hold him back, and all he has to do is get Hopkins the ball consistently. So I want to kind of get that out of there, as far as like Hopkins kind of coming to end his career here and just being washed, not doing anything. I think he's going to be quite the threat for him. And again, so let's go to the schedule here. So this is different than the teams like the Colts and the Texans I talked about in this video, because you kind of know what we're getting. You don't know how Hopkins is going to fit in, but you know what Derrick Henry is going to bring and what that kind of offense can do. So let's say, first off, you can beat the Saints. You can beat the Colts. You probably beat the Browns. Chargers might be tough, but you can beat the Falcons. You can beat Tampa Bay. You can beat Carolina. You can beat Houston. You can beat Houston twice, honestly. You can probably beat the Colts twice. And Seattle might be a little tough, but, we'll see how that goes. But really, I mean, there are a lot of games that can go either way here, and I think this team can be quite good. The Bengals, for whatever, just able to beat the Titans, so honestly, I'm kind of picking the Bengals in that one. But, like, the Ravens are going to give them problems. The Steelers could, but, I mean, you could beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars defense we looked at, I mean, they're going to have some trouble stopping this offense. So I like this a lot for the Titans. I love the position they're in. This is gonna be interesting. I have them one game back from the Jaguars. I have them in second, going 10-7. So let me just say this for any Titans and Jaguars fans, anything like that. That one game, predicting it on August 17th, really doesn't mean anything, because I don't know how they're going to perform when the time comes and when we're doing week picks throughout the year. That is literally just me saying, I think overall the Jaguars are the better team, and I have them being one game better than the Titans, but that is that close. It is that close. I mean, it could go really either way. So I have these teams fighting for the division. I honestly don't know which way it's going to go. I think it will be very close. It will depend on how Hopkins fits into that offense, and if Derrick Henry can stay healthy for him, because that would be a bit of a loss if they lose him. But again, you have Tajay Spears. I mean, if that rookie can go off, I mean, he looked to be pretty good. That's still some running back depth for you. So I like the Titans a lot. But I do have the Jaguars over them just because of how firepower that offense is. But it's by one game, man, and it's on like I said, I'm saying it's on August 17th. So things can change. That division is definitely up for grabs between the Jaguars and the Titans. The Colts and Texans, you're on the right path, but you're just not there yet, in my opinion. But again, short little recap right here. I have the Jaguars 11-6, the Titans 10-7, down to the Colts at 6-11, and the Texans at 5-12. And those, I mean, you kind of split that in half. You have the upper half and the lower half. I have each team one game back from each other. So I think it will be a close division. Just kind of separate as far as teams that are kind of moving up and teams that are already able to kind of at that spot to win the division. That's just kind of how I see that. So it's going to be a really, really exciting year for this division because it's going to be tough. It's going to be filled with young quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks. DeAndre Hopkins fitting into a new offense. I'm really excited to see how it all shakes out. As far as bold predictions go, gotta do Hopkins. I'm honestly just going to say 1,000 yards. Personally, I don't think it's that bold, but some people are seriously hating on this as far as him kind of falling off and not getting to that mark. So I'm saying Hopkins 1,000 yards. I am going to say Derrick Henry 1,300, a little bit back from last year, but he's still Derrick Henry. I think he's going to be very good. So that's kind of where I have him. And then Treylon Burks, I can't remember how many he got last year. Wasn't it like 444, I think? It was, 444. We'll say like 550. I see a slight improvement, but I do think Hopkins might kind of hog some of the opportunities Treylon could potentially be getting. And then they still have a Okonkwo as well. So I think it might be a little tougher for him to kind of like really break out. But like you're developing under DeAndre Hopkins. You're going to be a good receiver. And he already showed that last year as a rookie. Now he's got a really good veteran to help him out. I like that a lot for the Titans. So those are kind of my three bold-ish predictions for him. But otherwise, I see this division being very close between the Titans and Jaguars. The Colts and Texans, both are on the come up. Just not yet there yet for the division, but on the right path. And I think this is a very exciting division. And it will be very competitive in the next few seasons as the Colts and Texans continue to get better. But guys, that is going to do it for the video. If you did enjoy, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more NFL and Madden content. NFL, I've already covered the AFC North and NFC North. And then I've also just done the AFC South. Next will be the NFC South and so on. So I also do week picks when the season's going on. We finish our player prediction series. I do NFL tier list videos as well. And then NFL quiz videos occasionally as well. And then Madden, we have a No Money Spent series. We do gameplays, pack openings, new permanent content news, all that kind of stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you guys or you like any of that, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. Yeah, so thanks for watching. If you did stick around this long, I do really appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.